Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anime Dreams. Today, we dive into the next chapter of our fanfiction series. What if Naruko mastered the Snake's Age mode? Part 3. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage featured in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Having only just arrived in the village long enough for Kakashi to retrieve a few mission scrolls, Team 7 was already preparing to set out once again. As they reached the main gates of Konoha, Kakashi's gaze landed on an elderly couple sitting on a nearby bench, their hands clasped together in a display of quiet contentment. It was evident that they were enjoying their time in the village. Approaching them with his usual calm demeanor, Kakashi introduced himself. "Good day, my name is Kakashi Hatake. My students and I will be the shinobi assigned to escort you. I trust that arrangement is to your satisfaction?" he inquired in a polite yet professional tone. The couple, appearing at ease, nodded in agreement. For them, hiring a Jinan team was more than just a matter of security, it was an opportunity to spend time with young people, something they had missed out on since the loss of their son during the Third Shinobi War. Without grandchildren of their own to dote on, they had made it a habit to request Shinan teams whenever they traveled. Shinobi children tended to be more mature than their civilian counterparts, which made the experience even more enjoyable for the elderly pair. It was the woman who spoke up first. "That arrangement is perfectly fine. I only hope that your students are well-mannered. Young ones can be quite energetic, after all." Her comment was made with a knowing smile, though there was a hint of concern in her voice. Their previous escort mission had been memorable, to say the least. The exuberant Mito guy and his equally enthusiastic students had left a lasting impression, one they would rather not relive. Kakashi offered a reassuring nod. "My team is well-trained and disciplined. You'll have no trouble from them. Our primary responsibility is to ensure your safety should we encounter any threats along the way." His confident tone seemed to put the couple at ease. As they turned their attention toward the three Jinan standing a short distance away, they were pleased to find that none of them exhibited any overtly eccentric behavior. Their last team had been unique, to say the least. The matching green spandex outfits alone had caused more than a few restless nights. "Well then," Kakashi said with a light-hearted tone, "shall we begin the journey?" The elderly couple nodded and, with some effort, rose from the bench, gathering their belongings as they prepared to depart. Once they passed through the village gates, Team 7 and their clients set off toward the southern region of the Land of Fire. Observing the slight difficulty the couple faced in carrying their luggage, Naruko quickly formulated a solution. Knowing that the journey would proceed much more smoothly without the added burden, she stepped forward and politely addressed them. "If you'd like, I can seal your belongings into a scroll," she offered. "That way, you won't have to carry everything yourselves." Her tone was courteous, remembering the importance of building a good rapport with clients. The elderly woman's face immediately lit up with delight. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and wrapped Naruko in a warm embrace. The unexpected affection left Naruko momentarily flustered, as she wasn't accustomed to such displays of kindness. "Oh my, Mizuno, did you hear that? These Konoha shinobi are such thoughtful young people," she exclaimed. "Back in my day, ninja didn't even think to offer such kindness to their clients. The last 2 times we've traveled, we've been fortunate to meet such considerate teams. Even if that last group, the one with the boy in the green spandex and his equally unique sensei, were a bit overwhelming, they were still very eager to help." She beamed at Naruko, clearly pleased with the gesture. Kakashi, unable to suppress his amusement, chuckled softly at the woman's description of Guy. His quiet laughter did not go unnoticed. "And what exactly is so funny, young man?" she asked, tilting her head in curiosity. Still smiling, Kakashi replied, "Oh, nothing in particular. It's just that I work alongside that unique sensei rather often, and I must say, that was one of the most accurate descriptions I've ever heard." Satisfied with the response, Naruko proceeded to seal the couple's luggage into a scroll, demonstrating a level of efficiency that impressed the elderly woman. Once the process was complete, she carefully tucked the scroll into her backpack and turned to her clients with a small but confident smile. "There we go, all set," she said. The woman, clearly fascinated by the technique, grinned and gave Naruko another hug. Meanwhile, Sasuke, watching from the sidelines, scoffed quietly to himself. In his eyes, Naruko's action wasn't particularly remarkable, so he found the amount of attention she was receiving rather unnecessary. With the matter settled, the group resumed their journey, the elderly couple now walking with noticeably lighter steps, grateful for the kindness they had received. On their 3-day mission, Naruko, Sakura, and Sasuke learned an important lesson: sometimes, missions don't have to be thrilling or action-packed. In reality, most C-rank missions are more about ensuring safety rather than engaging in intense battles. This became especially clear during Team 7's third official mission. Nothing particularly eventful happened, and most of the time was spent with an elderly couple who seemed more interested in getting to know the young shinobi rather than encountering any danger. At first, they tried conversing with Sasuke, but after realizing how reserved he was, they eventually shifted their attention to Kakashi, Naruko, and Sakura. Sasuke, despite his usual indifference, couldn't ignore a strange feeling stirring within him. He watched as his teammates chatted and laughed with their clients, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something close to regret. He had chosen solitude, but seeing the others enjoying themselves made him question whether that choice was truly what he wanted. As the mission came to an end and the group bid farewell to their clients, Naruko couldn't have been happier. The elderly couple treated her like any ordinary child, and she cherished every moment of it. A new challenge. Since we have some extra time before the mission deadline, I figured we could work on a new chakra control exercise, Kakashi announced. This will improve your jutsu efficiency. Sakura, this should be especially easy for you since your chakra control is already excellent. What Kakashi didn't mention was that Sakura's precise chakra control stemmed from her naturally low chakra reserves, making it easier for her to manage. Today, you'll be learning water walking. Excitement sparked through the group. No matter how skilled a shinobi became, the idea of walking on water never lost its fascination. Hearing that they might one day be able to battle on water as if it were solid ground only fueled Sasuke and Naruko's determination. Standing ankle-deep in the water, Naruko concentrated, carefully adjusting her chakra to balance on the surface. She was eager to master this technique as quickly as possible. The unexpected battle. Once everyone was in position for the mission's final task, Kakashi activated the hands-free radio system, signaling the start of their plan. Unbeknownst to the group, a gang of bandits had been lurking nearby, hoping to make quick money by kidnapping wealthy children. However, they had no idea that they were about to be swiftly subdued by the young shinobi. Naruko and Sasuke acted fast, their weapons soaring through the air with precision. Thanks to a recent realization that she was actually left-handed, something Konoha's academy had overlooked, Naruko's throws had improved significantly. Now, her aim was sharper than ever. Her kunai flew at a speed that only a skilled ninja could follow, striking with pinpoint accuracy. The bandits barely had time to react before their weapons were knocked from their hands. Meanwhile, Sakura focused on the frightened children, swiftly guiding them to safety and ensuring they remained calm. As Naruko and Sasuke regrouped near Sakura, they suddenly heard movement in the distance. Within moments, about 10 more bandits emerged, closing in fast. But what caught their attention wasn't the number, it was who they were. These weren't ordinary criminals? They were rogue ninja from Konoha. Naruko and Sasuke exchanged a glance. In that single moment, they both understood exactly what needed to be done. Naruko and Sasuke swiftly formed hand seals, preparing to unleash their respective jutsu. Fire release, Grand Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke called out, bringing his hands to his mouth and expelling a massive fireball. Thanks to his recent training in water walking, his control had improved, making this fireball even larger than before. Similarly, Naruko was astonished by the sheer power of her own wind release technique. Wind release, Air bullet jutsu, she announced, releasing a concentrated blast of wind. Both young shinobi watched in awe as their combined techniques merged, creating a devastating force that overwhelmed their opponents. The rogue genin and bandits stood no chance, with only 4 managing to escape unscathed, while the rest suffered significant injuries. Never one to miss an opportunity, Naruko swiftly charged at what appeared to be a rogue ninja from the Akimichi clan. She understood that while the Akimichi possessed immense strength, they often sacrificed speed in exchange for power. With that knowledge, she aimed to use her agility to gain the upper hand in the battle. Meanwhile, Sasuke, unwilling to be outmatched, launched himself at his own opponent, a member of the Hyuga clan. From what Sasuke could observe, his opponent belonged to the branch family, as indicated by the forehead protector covering the cursed seal unique to branch members. Finally, Sasuke thought, a chance to test my Sharingan against a Hyuga. Now I can prove why my bloodline stands above their Byakugan. Closing his eyes briefly, Sasuke gathered the necessary chakra before reopening them, revealing his Sharingan. His once dark pupils were now crimson with 2 black tomoe in each eye. HN. Shouldn't you activate your Byakugan? Sasuke remarked, his Sharingan gleaming as he stared down his opponent, whom he believed had the lesser of the 2 dojutsu. The instant flash of anger across the Hyuga's face confirmed Sasuke's suspicions. His opponent couldn't activate his clan's prized Kekkei Genkai. Ha, so you left your village just because you couldn't awaken an ability you were born with? Sasuke taunted, a smirk forming on his lips. Allow me to demonstrate the true power of an elite bloodline. As he spoke, he channeled more chakra into his eyes, causing them to glow an even deeper red. Fueled by frustration, the 18-year-old Hyuga rogue sprang into action, charging at Sasuke with unrelenting fury, determined to prove his worth. With Naruko. As Naruko prepared for battle, she recalled how Choji would react whenever someone insulted his weight, often entering a furious state where he wouldn't stop until his opponent was completely incapacitated. Realizing that provoking her Akimichi opponent could cause him to fight even harder, Naruko decided to avoid any unnecessary remarks. Since she planned to rely on speed, she needed every possible advantage. Observing the confident, almost smug expression on the Akimichi's face, Naruko decided to use it to her benefit. She was used to being underestimated, both in battle and in life, only to surpass expectations time and time again. This fight would be no different. With a straightforward academy-style taijutsu stance, Naruko rushed toward her opponent. He appeared unconcerned, seemingly intent on toying with her. However, the moment she got close, his expression shifted as recognition dawned upon him. Oh, so I'm facing the so-called demon. How convenient, he sneered. When I defeat you and send you back to Konoha, I'll finally be promoted from a lowly C-rank rogue to at least a B rank. With that declaration, the Akimichi dodged Naruko's incoming punch and countered with one of his own, his strike carrying far more power than hers. Nimbly avoiding the attack, Naruko quickly realized that trading blows with an Akimichi would get her nowhere. Their raw strength far exceeded her own, so she needed a different approach. Reaching into her holster, she drew 2 kunai and flipped them into a reverse grip before re-engaging her opponent. Still exuding overconfidence, the Akimichi relied on his clan's partial expansion jutsu, enlarging both arms to attack. He had yet to take the fight seriously, assuming this was Naruko's first true battle. But if he continued underestimating her, he was in for a surprise. Naruko seized the opportunity created by her opponent's clumsy attack, swiftly driving the kunai in her left hand into the Akimichi man's right forearm. Unbeknownst to her, she was instinctively channeling wind-natured chakra into the metal, subtly enhancing its sharpness. As a result, the blade effortlessly pierced through the flesh, sliding between the 2 bones of his forearm. The hefty ninja let out a cry of pain, immediately dispelling his jutsu and returning his arms to their normal size. He knew he had to act fast, determined to execute a technique he believed would secure his victory. Given the enclosed battlefield, surrounded by towering cliffs, he was confident that his next move was inescapable. Despite the searing pain in his arm, the Akimichi pushed through, rapidly forming the necessary hand signs for his plan. he announced the first step of his twofold technique. Haijutsu, Baika no Jutsu, Akimichi Clan Secret Jutsu, Expansion Jutsu. In an instant, his already large frame expanded further, transforming him into a massive sphere with only his arms, legs, and head visible. Without wasting a second, he initiated the next part of his strategy, believing it would bring him victory and recognition. Haijutsu, Nikudan Sensha, Akimichi Clan Secret Jutsu, Human Bullet Tank Jutsu. With that, his limbs and head retracted into his spherical form, and he launched himself toward Naruko at high speed, spinning like a rolling boulder. Reacting swiftly, Naruko sidestepped the incoming attack, her sharp eyes scanning the terrain for something she could use to turn the tide in her favor. Noting the rocky cliff faces surrounding them, a clever idea formed in her mind, one that could bring the battle to a decisive end. Noticing a crucial point where the two cliff faces converged, Naruko set her strategy into motion, determined to neutralize the Akimichi opponent. As the large, rolling figure rebounded off the rock walls on either side, she purposefully maneuvered backward, luring him toward the narrow gap where the cliffs met. Once positioned precisely where she needed to be, Naruko patiently timed her next move. Channeling chakra into her legs to enhance her jump, she sprang upward at the perfect moment, narrowly evading the massive, rolling sphere. Landing gracefully on her feet, she turned to face the Akimichi as he hurtled toward the dead end of the cliffs. Without hesitation, Naruko performed a series of hand seals, focusing her chakra before thrusting her hands forward. Wind release, great breakthrough, she declared, unleashing a powerful gust of wind. The force propelled the Akimichi forward at an even greater speed, leaving little room for recovery. As expected, the collision was devastating. The sheer force of impact sent shockwaves through the air, halting his momentum with overwhelming pressure. The sheer velocity left him unable to rebound, rendering him completely incapacitated. Ensuring that her opponent would not rejoin the battle, Naruko retrieved a sealing tag from her pouch. With a swift motion, she affixed it to the cliff face before leaping away. A controlled explosion followed, sealing the area and providing the fallen ninja with a respectful farewell. Meanwhile, Sasuke, eager to test the full potential of his Sharingan, engaged in battle with his Hyuga opponent. He lunged forward with a deliberate feint, extending his right hand in a seemingly obvious strike. The Hyuga, confident in his ability to read the attack, attempted to counter, only to be caught off guard as Sasuke's left hand struck his jaw. Frustrated, the Hyuga quickly adjusted his stance, preparing to escalate the intensity of the fight. Minutes passed, yet neither fighter had gained a clear advantage. Both warriors panted, their stamina gradually depleting. Sasuke's endurance was being tested, and his opponent, too, had to constantly channel chakra to sustain his formidable taijutsu. "I need to improve my stamina and prolonged battles," Sasuke noted to himself. Making a swift decision, he leapt backward and rapidly formed a sequence of hand seals. "Fire release, Grand Fireball Jutsu," he announced, exhaling a large sphere of flames toward his opponent. Anticipating an evasive maneuver, Sasuke remained alert. The Hyuga predictably dodged to the left, and Sasuke seized the opportunity, utilizing the replacement jutsu to instantly reposition himself and close the distance. "Lightning release, False Darkness Jutsu," he declared, forming a concentrated bolt of lightning and launching it toward his adversary. A flicker of unease crossed the Hyuga's face as he attempted to evade, but the attack found its mark. Though not at full power, the jutsu still penetrated through his defenses, dealing a decisive blow. Relieved that he had gained the upper hand, Sasuke allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. If only this were Itachi instead, he thought. A familiar voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "Impressive work, Sasuke," Kakashi remarked, approaching with his usual laid-back demeanor. "I must say, I'm surprised to see you wielding lightning release techniques. Judging by how naturally you executed that jutsu, I'd say lightning is your primary element, despite the Uchiha clan's reputation for fire-based techniques." Sasuke processed his mentor's words, uncertain how to respond. Instead, a question lingered in his mind. What was that loud crash earlier? Did you have to engage in a fight? He asked, doubting that either of his teammates could have caused such destruction. Oh, that was Naruko finishing her battle, Kakashi replied nonchalantly, carefully observing Sasuke's reaction. As expected, frustration flashed across the Uchiha's face before it was masked by an arrogant smirk. Humph. If I hadn't been focused on refining my Sharingan, I could have ended my battle much faster than she did, he boasted. With their tasks complete, Sasuke and Kakashi made their way to regroup with Naruko and Sakura. The mission was a success, and their efforts were rewarded with a warm meal, a much-needed shower, and the comfort of proper beds for the night. 5 days had passed, and Team Kakashi had finally arrived at the capital of the Land of Fire. They were now waiting for security clearance to gain access to an audience with the Fire Daimyo. Naruko, since you aspire to become the Hokage, this meeting is particularly important for you, Kakashi explained. The Daimyo is the one who provides Konoha with its funding and missions. If you don't maintain a good relationship with him, Konoha could end up like Sunagakur, where the Daimyo delegates most missions to neighboring countries simply because he was displeased. You wouldn't want that to happen. Naruko nodded, taking Kakashi's words seriously. She mentally reviewed everything she knew about the Daimyo to ensure she followed the conversation properly. After receiving approval from the samurai guarding the entrance, Kakashi stepped forward to retrieve the necessary documents. Greetings, Daimyo-sama. It has been quite some time since we last met, Kakashi said politely, maintaining a respectful tone. Oh. Now I remember. The Daimyo responded, his expression brightening. You were that young man who accompanied Minato-kun to my celebration when he was inaugurated as Hokage. Kakashi gave a small nod. Yes, Daimyo-sama. That was me. Minato-sensei invited me along with his then-girlfriend, Kushina. The Daimyo's face softened at the mention of their names. Ah, it is truly unfortunate that Kushina-chan and Minato-kun are no longer with us. Oh. If you called him Minato-sensei, then that means you must be Kakashi-kun, the son of Konoha's White Fang, no less. My, how you've grown. It seems that your final growth spurt was very kind to you, he remarked. Kakashi smiled politely before responding, yes, I often wish Minato-sensei and Kushina-chan were still here, but unfortunately, life doesn't always go the way we hope. Realizing that the Daimyo was a busy man, Kakashi quickly moved the conversation along. Daimyo-sama, I understand you have a demanding schedule, so we won't take up too much of your time. Here is the scroll with the necessary details. As expected, the Daimyo, who was known to be easily persuaded, accepted the document without much hesitation. With their business concluded, the team left the office. With some free time in the city, Sakura saw an opportunity to ask someone special out. Hey, Sasuke-kun, would you like to? Sakura began, but before she could finish, Sasuke interrupted her. You're worse than Naruko, he stated flatly. Sakura felt a pang of disappointment. She had always thought that no matter how much Naruko improved, she would remain the lowest-ranking student in their class, as everyone else would continue to grow as well. However, her thoughts were interrupted by Sasuke's next words. If you have time to spend hours getting ready in the morning, then you have time to train, he said before walking away, intent on finding a place to improve his stamina and chakra reserves. Sakura was momentarily taken aback but quickly found herself inspired. Determined to improve, she made her way back to where Kakashi and Naruko were standing. Kakashi-sensei, how can I build my chakra reserves so I have more to work with? She asked. It was the first time she had ever taken an active interest in her training, and she imagined that her sensei must be surprised. Indeed, Kakashi was caught off guard by her question, as was Naruko, who stood beside him. Ever the one to tease, Kakashi responded in his usual nonchalant manner. Huh? Did you say something? He asked, feigning ignorance. Naruko stifled a chuckle as Sakura sighed in exasperation. Blushing in embarrassment for reasons she couldn't quite understand, Sakura pressed on, determined to get the information she sought. I asked, How do you build your chakra so that you have more energy? She inquired, directing her question toward her sensei, who had just recovered from the surprise of Sakura showing genuine interest in training. Oh? So, you're finally taking your training seriously, Sakura-chan? Kakashi mused, curious to see her reaction. He wasn't shocked when she blushed at the undeniable truth. Up until now, she hadn't been fully committed to her shinobi training. Well, increasing your chakra reserves is similar to strengthening a muscle. Since you have quite a bit of knowledge in that brain of yours, I assume you understand how muscle development works? Kakashi asked. Sakura nodded in understanding, silently appreciating the explanation before dashing off, already formulating a training regimen that could help expand her chakra reserves. Meanwhile, Naruko, ever inquisitive, turned her attention to her sensei. So, you were trained by the fourth Hokage, huh? Is that the reason you're such a skilled ninja, Kakashi-sensei? She asked, eager to know what it was like to learn from someone of that caliber. Kakashi's visible eye softened at the mention of his late mentor. Minato-sensei was an incredible person, and I would have admired him even if he hadn't been my teacher. But as for your question, the skill of a teacher matters only to a certain extent. At your current level, it's not about how talented your instructor is, it's about your own drive to improve. Once you reach the level of a Jonin and seek mastery in specific areas, then having an expert mentor becomes more crucial. What I'm trying to say is that if I had no real interest in training you, if I saw you only as the Ninetales host instead of a person, I would be a worse teacher than Iruka. At least he would genuinely want to help you, Kakashi explained. Naruko nodded, taking his words to heart but quickly followed up with another question. Then why is it that you only train us when we specifically ask for it? She asked, recalling how Kakashi rarely offered guidance beyond teamwork drills unless someone directly requested it. Unfazed by the observation, Kakashi was ready with an answer. There's one thing all of you need before I step in to train you seriously: initiative. If you don't take the first step in wanting to improve, then training would be pointless. Both you and Sasuke have already shown initiative by seeking out new jutsus and pushing yourselves. If I just handed out techniques without effort on your part, it wouldn't do you any favors, it would only inflate your ego. I could push all three of you to your limits, just like I did with new Anbu recruits, but that kind of training only works when someone truly wants to grow. Otherwise, it's meaningless and a waste of time, Kakashi stated. Naruko nodded, taking a moment to absorb her sensei's words before offering him a grateful smile. Thanks for the insight, Kakashi-sensei, she said sincerely. Well then, Kakashi-sensei, would you be willing to help me improve my speed? I was reading a book at the library, and it mentioned that the fastest shinobi often have the advantage in battle. After all, what's the use of having a powerful jutsu if the opponent can dodge it? Naruko asked eagerly. The thought of receiving one-on-one training excited her, it was a rare opportunity. Kakashi closed his book and slipped it into his pocket, giving Naruko a nod. Sure, he agreed. Let's get started. Alright, Naruko, that's enough. You've done an impressive job, Kakashi said, genuinely acknowledging her progress. He was beginning to think that with her battle instincts and strategic thinking, she could be a strong candidate for the Chunin exams. It was something to consider for the near future. It would also be beneficial to get Sakura to focus more on her skills rather than her usual distractions. Who knew? One of his students might even achieve something extraordinary. Naruko ran up to her sensei, breathing heavily. She was on the verge of exhaustion after pushing herself to her limit, using nearly all of her chakra. Kakashi-sensei. How did I do? She asked between gasps, eager for feedback. She wanted to analyze the fight in her head and figure out ways to improve for next time. For someone who graduated from the academy just 5 months ago, your performance was exceptional, Kakashi replied honestly. If this were the final round of the Chunin exams, I'd say it would be enough to earn you a promotion. However, the judges might be a bit stricter in your case, considering certain factors. His tone was neutral, but Naruko understood that he was referring to the way people in the village viewed her. Kakashi had other things on his mind as well, things he believed Naruko deserved to know. Now that she was maturing as a shinobi, he felt she could handle learning more about her past. But that decision wasn't his to make, it was up to the Hokage. Shaking off his wandering thoughts, Kakashi focused on his student, who was still struggling to stay on her feet. "Naruko, you should eat something. You're completely drained of chakra, and your body needs fuel to recover properly," he advised. Naruko nodded and made her way over to where she had left her backpack near a tree. Instead of her usual 3 ration bars and 1 protein shake, she ended up eating 8 nutrient bars and drinking 2 protein shakes. Her appetite was as strong as ever. For the next 3 hours, Kakashi put Naruko through a rigorous training regimen that pushed her to her limits. The intensity far exceeded what she was used to, making her question whether she had ever truly pushed herself before. Each time she reached the point of muscle exhaustion, Kakashi would shift to a different exercise, targeting a new set of muscles. This cycle continued relentlessly, ensuring that every part of her body was trained to its fullest. By the end of the session, Naruko was utterly exhausted, barely able to move. Seeing that she had reached her limit physically, Kakashi decided it was time to introduce her to the fundamentals of genjutsu, something every shinobi needed to be aware of. The most important thing to remember when it comes to genjutsu is that attention to detail is key. Kakashi began his lecture. Naruko groaned but still pushed herself up, walking over to her backpack. She pulled out a small notebook titled Notes for Learning and flipped it open, ready to take notes. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at this but quickly returned to his usual composed demeanor. The reason attention to detail is so important in genjutsu is twofold, he continued, preparing to guide Naruko through this new and essential aspect of shinobi training. "The first thing you need to do is always stay aware of your surroundings," Kakashi explained, his tone firm yet instructive. Noticing when something feels off or out of place is one of the easiest ways to determine if you've been caught in a genjutsu. He observed Naruko's attentiveness, impressed by how well she grasped the lesson, especially considering she hadn't received the same structured education as civilian students. "The second reason why awareness is so crucial," he continued, "is that when you use genjutsu yourself, you must ensure there are no inconsistencies. If an opponent detects something unusual, they'll realize they're under an illusion and attempt to break free." Naruko diligently jotted down notes, determined to absorb every detail. New heading, Naruko, Breaking Genjutsu. Kakashi paused, waiting for her to finish writing. There are 4 primary methods to escape a genjutsu, but today, we'll only cover 3. The 4th method wouldn't be effective in your case due to the Kyuubi's presence. Naruko frowned slightly but quickly refocused, knowing she had to make the most of the lessons available to her. "The first method," Kakashi began, "should only be used as a last resort when all other options fail. Understand?" Though phrased as a question, Naruko knew it was more of a directive than a suggestion. She nodded, bracing herself for what was to come. "This method involves causing enough physical discomfort to disrupt the illusion. When your nervous system sends overwhelming signals to your brain, it can forcefully break the genjutsu." Kakashi observed Naruko's reaction before continuing. "However, with your high chakra reserves, you have a more effective option. By forming the ram hand sign and sending out a concentrated wave of chakra, you can dispel genjutsu in your immediate surroundings." He paused, giving Naruko a moment to process the information. When she didn't immediately ask a question, he moved on. "The next method requires external assistance. If someone nearby injects a small amount of their chakra into your system, it can disrupt the illusion and free you from its effects." Then, as if remembering an additional piece of advice specifically useful for her, Kakashi added, "There's another technique that could be beneficial to you, Naruko. It is said that if a Jinchuriki gains full control over their tailed beast, they can use the creature's chakra to purge genjutsu from their system." Naruko's eyes gleamed with curiosity and determination at the idea of harnessing the Kyuubi's power. "Now, put your notebook away," Kakashi instructed. "This next part is entirely practical." Naruko obeyed, setting her notes aside as she turned her full attention to her sensei. "What you're about to learn is how to expand your chakra outward and eliminate any nearby genjutsu. To do this, gather the amount of chakra equivalent to creating 5 shadow clones, then release it in all directions. What Naruko didn't realize was that this technique was a fundamental skill for Anbu operatives aspiring to become captains. Chakra sensing was an essential ability at that level, ensuring no one could sneak up undetected. Surprisingly, she picked up the technique almost instantly. Without hesitation, Naruko focused her chakra and sent it pulsing outward, successfully dispelling a B-ranked genjutsu that Kakashi had secretly placed on her. He had done so to gauge her natural ability, and what he saw was beyond impressive. For someone learning to break genjutsu for the first time, Naruko was nothing short of remarkable. Kakashi couldn't help but think she had the potential of a prodigy, one whose growth had been hindered by the flaws of the Konoha education system. After an intense day of training, the two finally made their way to a hotel, part of their mission's accommodations for the night in the capital of the Fire Country. Turning around, Naruko was surprised to see that there were actually people who thought hiding under a cardboard cutout of a rock would be an effective stealth tactic. It was almost amusing how much they underestimated her abilities. Slightly annoyed, Naruko decided to use a low-powered wind release, great breakthrough jutsu to gently blow away whoever was beneath the box, revealing them about 5 meters down the street. To her surprise, 3 kids, probably around 8 or 9 years old, stumbled out, looking slightly dazed. Naruko noticed that one of them had been holding a smoke bomb, which must have gone off when they were knocked away, leaving them coughing as a result. After recovering, the 3 children quickly ran over to her, seemingly eager to introduce themselves. Striking a pose that was meant to be confident, the only girl in the group spoke first. "I'm Moigi, and I'm the sassiest kunoichi from preschool. Check me out," she declared in an enthusiastic, fangirl-like voice, holding out her hand. What that was supposed to mean, Naruko had no idea, but she decided to go along with it anyway. Next, the boy standing to Moigi's left stepped forward. He wore a dark blue top, and unfortunately, had a large strand of mucus trailing from his nose. "I love algebra. Call me Udon," the sniffling boy announced, striking a pose similar to the ones Naruko had seen performers use in music videos. She resisted the urge to cringe, trying not to react to his questionable hygiene. As someone who had experienced teasing in the past, she didn't want to embarrass him in front of his friends. Finally, Naruko turned her attention to the last member of the trio. Recognizing him from books she had read about Konoha's prominent families, she realized he was none other than the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage. She couldn't help but wonder why someone from such an esteemed background would be so eager to talk to her. The boy puffed out his chest and grinned confidently. "And I'm the #1 ninja in the village, Konohamaru," he declared, standing proudly in a pose that, unbeknownst to him, nearly caused him to trip over his own scarf. Once they had each introduced themselves, the 3 children shouted in unison, and together, "We are the Konohamaru Ninja Squad." Striking a dramatic group pose, they beamed at Naruko, seemingly waiting for a reaction. Watching the scene unfold, Naruko briefly wondered if her sensei had slipped some sort of hallucinogenic herb into her meal, because what she was witnessing felt completely surreal. After taking a moment to process everything, she finally sighed and responded, "And what exactly was the reason for tracking me down?" she asked, hoping to gauge how long she would have to entertain their antics. Ignoring her question entirely, Konohamaru eagerly chimed in. "My grandpa, the Sandaime Hokage, promised that you would play ninja with us," he announced, pouting slightly. It was clear that he was used to getting his way, likely because of his grandfather's status. Before Naruko could even respond, Sakura happened to overhear Konohamaru's words. However, she completely misinterpreted the situation, mistakenly believing that Naruko had actually agreed to play along. "Seriously? A ninja playing ninja with kids? That's just embarrassing," Sakura said, folding her arms in disbelief. Naruko had been making progress as a person, but then she went and did something like this. It was hard to understand her sometimes. Just when Sakura thought Naruko was maturing, she would do something completely unexpected. Konohamaru, however, didn't see it that way. Remembering what his grandfather had told him about Naruko, he immediately sided with her. It was a rare moment for Naruko, having someone stand up for her, aside from Iruka on occasion, and she couldn't help but appreciate it. "Hey, boss, who is this girl anyway?" Konohamaru asked, looking at Sakura. None of Team 7, who were nearby, bothered to respond. Being young and impressionable, Konohamaru didn't fully understand the concept of relationships or romance, but he quickly came to his own conclusion. The way Sakura was glaring at Naruko, it was as if she was throwing invisible daggers at her. A sudden realization hit Konohamaru like a light bulb turning on in his head. Rubbing Naruko's back, he leaned in and grinned. "Oh, I see what's going on. Is she your girlfriend, boss? You're pretty smooth, huh?" he said with a playful smirk, winking at Naruko. Naruko, not having much experience when it came to these kinds of things, blinked in confusion. It wasn't until Konohamaru held up his pinky finger that she finally understood what he was implying. "Why would I ever want to date someone like her?" Sakura scoffed, making her stance clear. When there are amazing people like the great Sasuke-kun out there, someone like him would be a much better choice. She wanted to make sure there was no misunderstanding. There was absolutely no way she saw Naruko in that way. Seeing Sakura's harsh dismissal, the brown-haired boy immediately changed his stance on helping Naruko. "What kind of girl are you, acting like that? Now that I think about it, why would the boss even want to date someone with such a big forehead and a bad attitude? There are plenty of other girls out there," Konohamaru remarked, watching as Sakura fumed with frustration. As Konohamaru's words sank in, Naruko's mind briefly wandered to an image of Karen-chan from Kusagakure, smiling brightly in a dress. Shaking off the thought, she quickly refocused on the situation at hand. Konohamaru had just gotten himself into serious trouble. "You might want to run, Konohamaru. Looks like you've bitten off more than you can chew," Naruko advised. The 9-year-old boy rapidly nodded, turning on his heels and dashing away from Sakura as fast as he could. Being the kind-hearted person she was, Naruko decided to follow, just to make sure nothing got too out of hand. It turned out to be a good decision because she soon noticed that not all the shinobi in the village at the moment were from Konoha. No, among them were a few shinobi from the Hidden Sand village, and unfortunately for Konohamaru, one of them was the very person he crashed into while trying to escape. "Ugh, you little brat, that hurt," the Suna shinobi grumbled, looking down at the boy. Konohamaru, caught off guard, could only let out a small grunt in response. Sakura, feeling uneasy but hoping to de-escalate the situation, attempted to smooth things over. "Hey, I'm really sorry about that. We were just messing around," she said, trying to sound confident despite her uncertainty about who these people were. Naruko, however, couldn't stand watching someone being bullied, especially since it reminded her of her own childhood. Her frustration built as she sprinted toward the shinobi in an attempt to stop what was happening. Amused by her boldness, Kankuro smirked as he extended a chakra string in an effort to trip her. "Let's see how tough these leaf Shinon really are," he mused to himself. Feeling something latch onto her ankle, Naruko instinctively used her chakra control, honed from water walking training, to maintain her footing, rendering the trip attempt useless. Kankuro's confidence wavered as Naruko swiftly reacted. Without hesitation, she pulled out a kunai, just as a well-aimed rock flew toward the Suna shinobi, forcing him to loosen his grip on Konohamaru. Naruko recognized an opening, probably set up by Sasuke, given their growing teamwork under Kakashi's training. Wasting no time, she moved in with a quick, controlled jab, aiming to deter the opponent from attacking her comrade. Kankuro, realizing too late that she was armed, tried to dodge, but he wasn't fast enough. A sharp cut ran across his right arm, forcing him to step back. With her objective complete, Naruko scooped up Konohamaru and, using a chakra-enhanced leap, brought him to safety. Just then, an overwhelming sense of pressure filled the area, a chilling presence that made even seasoned shinobi uneasy. A boy perched upside down on a tree branch opposite Sasuke silently made his presence known. "Kankuro, you are an embarrassment to Suna," he stated in an emotionless voice. Kankuro immediately backed away, clearly aware of just how powerful his younger brother was. How did he? That's on Kakashi's level of stealth. I couldn't even sense him. The same thought ran through the minds of the Konoha as they realized just how dangerous this newcomer truly was. As the red-haired girl stood beneath the tree, the surrounding noise gradually faded, drawing everyone's attention to her words. Losing control in a fight? That's just reckless. Why do you think we came to this village in the first place? Gaara asked in a calm yet detached tone, her question more rhetorical than inquisitive. Struggling to ignore the pain radiating from his right arm while maintaining a composed expression, Kankuro found it difficult to respond to his younger sister. Listen, Gaara, they started it, and he began, hastily searching for the right words. Unfortunately for him, his response was clearly the wrong one. Gaara's expression remained unreadable, but her next words carried an unmistakable warning. Be quiet, or you'll regret it, she stated before vanishing in an instant, only to reappear between her siblings. As Gaara positioned herself between them, an all too familiar voice called out, interrupting the tense moment. Hey, wait! Sakura shouted, capturing the attention of Team Sand. Her words made them pause, turning to face her as she continued. Judging by your forehead protectors, you're shinobi from the Hidden Sand Village, right? Sakura asked, briefly gathering her thoughts before speaking again. Even though our villages are allies, it is strictly prohibited for foreign ninjas to enter another village without prior authorization. State your purpose. Depending on your answer, we might not be able to let you leave so easily. She attempted to sound authoritative, though the weight of her words didn't quite match her tone. Tamari, who was accustomed to dealing with Gaara's intensity, found the pink-haired girl's attempt at intimidation almost amusing. Judging by her appearance, she seemed more like an admirer of someone than an actual threat. Wow, you really don't know much, do you? Tamari remarked, shaking her head slightly. Meanwhile, Naruko and Sasuke listened attentively, eager to absorb any new information that might be important. You're right, we are Jinan from the Hidden Sand Village, Tamari confirmed in a refined tone, a result of her formal training as the daughter of the Kazekage. We've come to the Hidden Leaf Village to participate in the biannual Chunin selection exams. Before she could elaborate further, possibly to educate Sakura on the significance of the exams, Sasuke leapt down from his position on a nearby tree branch, his gaze fixed on Gaara. Without hesitation, he spoke. What's your name? The dark-haired Uchiha asked, his voice steady and direct. The blonde-haired Kunoichi wielding a fan initially thought the question was directed at her, causing a slight blush to rise to her cheeks. The idea of someone like Sasuke asking for her name flustered her. You mean me? Tamari asked, attempting to hide her embarrassment. Sasuke, however, was direct and unyielding in his response. No, you, with the gourd, he stated, his gaze fixed on the red-haired shinobi carrying the large container. Gaara Sabaku, the gourd-bearing ninja introduced himself, his tone calm and composed. Sasuke committed the name to memory, filing it away for future reference. Naruko did the same, sensing that this was someone she might encounter again. Turning his attention toward both Sasuke and Naruko, Gaara posed a question of his own. You too, he said, his gaze shifting between them. I would also like to know your names. His tone remained polite, yet there was an unmistakable intensity behind his words. After exchanging introductions, Gaara and his team departed, disappearing from the walkway. Using the brief distraction to slip away unnoticed, Naruko decided to make the most of her time by heading off for some training. She felt there was still plenty of room for improvement, especially when it came to pushing her physical limits beyond what she had managed that morning. However, Naruko wasn't planning to focus solely on taijutsu. Knowing that a balanced skill set was crucial, she made her way to the library to borrow a book on wind-style ninjutsu. Given her naturally large chakra reserves, mastering wind techniques would allow her to refine her control and maximize her efficiency in battle. Once she checked out a book on advanced wind-style jutsu, designed for shinobi aspiring to reach the Chunin level and beyond, Naruko headed straight for Team 7's training grounds. She knew it was the perfect spot, as Sasuke typically trained in his clan compound, and Sakura rarely trained at all. During a previous sparring session with her sensei, Kakashi, Naruko had made an unexpected discovery: her shadow clones were capable of using chakra for ninjutsu. More importantly, any experience they gained would transfer back to her once dispelled. This revelation sparked an idea that had the potential to revolutionize her training. If she created multiple shadow clones to train in ninjutsu while she focused on physical conditioning, she could essentially train in both areas at the same time. This would allow her to accelerate her progress far beyond what was normally possible. Still, Naruko knew she had to be cautious. Rather than using the full extent of her abilities and summoning over 100 clones, she limited herself to about 25. She didn't want to recklessly exhaust her chakra in case the method didn't work. Conservation was key. She viewed chakra as valuable as money, something to be used wisely. This cautious approach proved to be a wise decision. The powerful entity sealed within her, the nine-tailed fox, could have taken advantage of a weakened state if she had overexerted herself. Maintaining a stable level of chakra was crucial to keeping the fox's influence at bay. Opening the book, Naruko read through the first exercise required for mastering wind-style ninjutsu. The initial step involved splitting a leaf by channeling chakra into a fine, razor-sharp edge, precise enough to slice through the surface. She noted that the technique worked best when chakra was manipulated into two opposing forces, grinding against each other to create a stronger cutting motion. Wasting no time, she relayed the instructions to her clones, who quickly gathered leaves from the nearby trees and began practicing. Since she didn't have access to the weighted training equipment Kakashi had provided in the past, Naruko had to improvise. She found a large rock that closely matched the weight of her usual gear, ensuring she could continue her strength training without interruption. With a solid plan in place, Naruko fully immersed herself in her training, determined to push her limits and improve in every way possible. Time skip, nighttime. After an intense day of training that pushed her muscles to their limit, Naruko leaned against a tree in the training ground, catching her breath. As she dispelled her shadow clone technique, a flood of information rushed into her mind, revealing the progress her clones had made in refining their wind chakra manipulation. Curious about her advancement, Naruko picked up one of the scattered leaves and examined it closely. "I was really hoping to cut it completely," she thought, unaware that mastering elemental chakra control typically took years of dedicated practice. In the palm of her hand was a leaf with a deep cut running down its center, though its edges remained rough and uneven. "Well, at least I managed to slice halfway through. That's progress," she mused, choosing to see the positive side. After a long day of training, including a brief encounter with Team Sabaku and the Konohamaru Corps, exhaustion weighed on Naruko as she struggled to stand. She knew she needed rest. Tomorrow promised to be another demanding day. The next day. After the usual 3-hour wait for their notoriously tardy teacher, Naruko, Sakura, and Sasuke finally saw their sensei, Kakashi Hatake, arrive. Before Sakura could voice her frustration, something she did well enough to make up for all three of them, Kakashi gave his signature excuse. "I got lost on the road of life," he said casually, his ever-present mask concealing any expression. Ignoring Sakura's outburst, Kakashi addressed his team with an announcement. "Well, this might seem sudden, but I've nominated the three of you to participate in this year's Chunin exams." His eye curved slightly, indicating a hidden smile. He handed each of them a nomination form before continuing, "This is just an opportunity, not an obligation. Whether or not you choose to participate is entirely up to you." Kakashi was particularly interested in Sakura's decision, knowing she had the most room for improvement in combat and strategy. Exam registration. As Team 7 stepped into the exam hall, rows of chairs and desks lined the space, signaling the start of a written test. From the moment Sakura entered, an unsettling feeling crept over her. A heavy atmosphere filled the room, and she could feel countless eyes watching their every move. But before she could dwell on the tension, her attention was immediately stolen by an all-too-familiar voice. "Ino," she muttered, her irritation rising as she witnessed her former best friend practically draping herself over Sasuke. "I haven't seen you in so long, Sasuke-kun," Ino greeted, her tone brimming with excitement as she attempted to charm him. Sasuke, however, didn't seem pleased in the slightest. His expression showed nothing but discomfort, as if he were trying not to recoil. Seeing this, Sakura took it upon herself to intervene. "Get away from Sasuke-kun, Ino pig," she snapped, pushing herself between them, determined to defend her longtime crush. Recognizing the voice, Ino turned to see Sakura, her competitive rival in both skill and affection for Sasuke. With a smirk, she fired back, "Oh, if it isn't Sakura. That oversized forehead of yours is as noticeable as ever." It was a direct hit to Sakura's biggest insecurity, but rather than backing down, she stood her ground, something Ino hadn't anticipated. Before Ino could continue her rivalry with Sakura, her eyes wandered toward Naruko. "Ha! She's different." Gone was the loud, attention-seeking girl in the bright orange jumpsuit. Naruko carried herself with confidence, her outfit more practical, her presence more composed. "She's even built some muscle," Ino observed, intrigued. "I wonder if she knows anything useful about Sasuke." Before a dispute could break out between two preteen girls, a new voice entered the conversation, drawing everyone's attention. "You all are taking this test too? Well, good luck, just try not to get too overwhelmed," Shikamaru remarked in his usual laid-back tone before leaning against the wall. Almost as soon as Shikamaru settled in, another voice chimed in, adding to the gathering of young shinobi. This time, it was none other than Kiba Inuzuka, the heir of the Inuzuka clan. "Hey, I found you!" Kiba called out in a loud voice, immediately capturing the attention of both Team 7 and Team 8. The next to speak was Hinata Hyuga, who, despite her usual shyness, managed a polite and somewhat nervous greeting, her gaze lingering on Naruko. It was clear that she was struggling to reconcile the Naruko she once knew with the one standing before her now. "She's changed so much." Shino Aburame, ever composed, made an observation. "It seems we have all gathered in the same place once again." His calm statement acknowledged that this was the first time the group had reunited since the Junon exams nearly 6 months ago. Kiba's attention then shifted to Naruko's outfit, and with his usual bluntness, he pointed it out for everyone to notice. "Hey, Naruko, what's with the new look? Trying to act cool and be like Sasuke now?" he remarked, his voice carrying a teasing edge. The dog perched atop his head wagged its tail as if agreeing with his words. Ino, ever the fashion critic, immediately took notice. She observed Naruko's oversized olive green tee and baggy black joggers, mentally assessing the unexpected style change. Wow, Naruko actually developed a fashion sense. Annoyed by the unnecessary attention on her clothing, Naruko responded with a hint of sarcasm, though her expression remained unreadable. "I've grown." "Have you?" she mused, her tone making it clear she wasn't particularly impressed with Kiba's remark. A quick glance at him told her he hadn't changed much. Kiba, oblivious to the hint, continued. "And what's with the new personality shift, Naruko?" His tone suggested he didn't buy into the transformation and still saw her as someone who thrived on attention. Without missing a beat, Naruko responded flatly, "Kiba, stop talking." Shikamaru, who had been observing quietly, let out a quiet chuckle. He found himself appreciating this version of Naruko far more than the one he had known before. She really has changed. I wonder what caused it. His mind began piecing things together, analyzing every lesson his father had ever taught him about human behavior. Naruko had suddenly become much more interesting. Before Kiba or anyone else could add to the discussion, a voice came from outside their usual circle. The newcomer had round glasses framing his face, and his silver hair was neatly tied back in a ponytail. "Hey, you guys should keep it down," he advised, his tone calm but firm. The forehead protector on his head identified him as a fellow Leaf Ninja, though he was clearly older than the assembled rookies. As he approached, Naruko studied him closely. He appeared to be in his late teens or early 20s, and something about him felt off. She couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that she had encountered his scent before, though she couldn't quite place it. "You're all fresh out of the academy, aren't you?" the silver-haired Janan remarked. "Shouting like this. You do realize this isn't a field trip, right?" His words were directed at the group as a whole, but his gaze seemed to linger on Sasuke in particular. However, his skill level was so far beyond theirs that none of them could truly gauge his strength. Sasuke, never one to let a challenge pass, narrowed his eyes. "Who do you think you are?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. If this person was anything like Rock Lee or Gaara, he wanted to know exactly what kind of competition they were up against. With a relaxed smile that seemed to ease the tension, the silver-haired boy responded to the Rookie of the Year's question. "My name is Kabuto, Kabuto Yakashi. Take a look around you," he said, gesturing toward the surrounding crowd. Following his cue, Naruko, Sakura, and Sasuke glanced behind them, noticing multiple individuals watching them with clear disdain. Naruko quickly deduced that their reaction was likely due to something she had read in books. Teams of rookie Janan entering the Chunin exams were a rarity. "They're all from the Hidden Rain village, and let's just say they're not known for their patience," Kabuto added, leaning into common perceptions about the village. Kiba took his words at face value, shifting his gaze between Kabuto and the Rain village Janan. "Well, I can't blame you. You're all fresh out of the academy, you remind me of how I used to be," Kabuto continued with a hint of nostalgia, deliberately crafting his words to earn Sasuke's trust, just as Orochimaru had instructed him. Curious about his experience, Sakura, never one to hold back her questions, confidently asked, "So, is this your first time taking the Chunin exams?" Naruko, who had developed a knack for recognizing fake emotions, couldn't shake the feeling that Kabuto's demeanor was just a little too practiced. "No, this is actually my 7th attempt," Kabuto admitted, scratching the back of his head in mild embarrassment. "Since the exams are held twice a year, that means I've been at it for 4 years now." His admission only deepened Naruko's unease. Something about him didn't quite add up, and her instincts told her to be cautious. Sakura didn't share the same unease that Naruko felt. "Wow, so you must know a lot about this exam then?" she asked the silver-haired boy, who simply nodded with a small smile. He, Kabuto chuckled before composing himself. "Well, I suppose I can share some useful information with you rookies using these ninja info cards." He held up a small stack of cards as he spoke. Naruko, however, was growing increasingly suspicious of him. Why was he so willing to hand out details on the competition? Did this mean he also had information on them? Something about the whole situation didn't sit right with her. Sakura, being naturally curious, partly due to the time she had spent with Ino as a child, was intrigued. She had always loved gathering knowledge, which explained her frequent visits to the library. "Ninja info cards?" she asked, unfamiliar with the term. Kabuto nodded. "I've compiled 4 years' worth of data into these cards." He held them up for the group to see. "At first glance, they look blank, but they can only be activated with my chakra. Without it, they won't reveal anything." As he demonstrated, one of the cards transformed from a blank piece of paper into a detailed map of the elemental nations. It displayed the number of participants in the exam and the villages they hailed from. Seeing the usefulness of these cards firsthand, Sasuke wasted no time in asking his own question. "Do you have information on specific individuals?" he inquired, his tone direct. Kabuto chuckled at the request. Is there someone you're particularly concerned about?" He noticed Sasuke's expression twitch slightly, indicating that he had hit a nerve. Shrugging off the remark, Sasuke got straight to the point. "Gaara of the Sand and Rock Lee," he stated, eager to learn if there were any weaknesses he could exploit. Naruko, for her part, listened carefully, hoping to gather valuable insight on her potential opponents. Kabuto sighed, almost disappointed by the straightforward request. "Oh, so you already know their names? That takes some of the fun out of it." Nevertheless, he activated another card, revealing the information Sasuke had asked for. Alright, first up, Rock Lee. He's a year older than you all. Mission history, 28D rank missions completed, 12C rank missions completed. His sensei is Might Guy. Over the past year, his taijutsu has improved significantly, but aside from that, there's not much else to note. Kabuto flipped the card over. Last year, he gained some recognition as a promising Genin, but he didn't participate in the exams. Like you, this is his first time. His teammates are Neji Hyuga and Tenten. Allowing that information to sink in, Kabuto moved on to the next individual. Now, Gaara of the Sand. Mission history, 8C rank missions completed, 1B rank mission completed, all while still a Genin. Since he's from a foreign village, I don't have extensive details on him. But get this, he has never been injured, not even once, during a mission. He paused briefly before continuing. Konoha, Suna, Ame, Taki, Kuza, Otto. Many remarkable young talents from various villages are here for this exam. The Hidden Sound village, however, is relatively new, so there isn't much information available on them. At this comment, 3 individuals from the Sound village took offense. Did you hear what that guy just said about Otto? Zaku muttered to his teammates, Dosu and Kin. Yeah, he's acting like we're insignificant, Dosu replied, his visible eye narrowing. Maybe we should show him that shinobi from the Sound village aren't to be underestimated. Kin hesitated for a moment, not wanting to draw unnecessary attention to their team, but ultimately nodded in agreement. As Dosu sprinted toward the silver-haired Genin, he prepared his melody arm for an attack on Kabuto. However, the Konoha ninja swiftly dodged, avoiding the direct strike. Nonetheless, Dosu's weapon was not solely dependent on direct contact, its sound-based abilities had an area of effect. The powerful sound wave shattered Kabuto's glasses instantly. The impact went beyond just breaking his glasses. Kabuto collapsed to the floor, overwhelmed by nausea as he lost the contents of his stomach. Meanwhile, Naruko and Kiba, who had witnessed the attack, noticed a high-frequency noise but were unaffected beyond mild discomfort. How embarrassing, especially for someone with 4 years of experience in these exams, Dosu remarked confidently, wanting to make sure no one underestimated his team. Go ahead and write this down. 3 shinobi from the Hidden Sound have defeated a future Chunin. Before anyone could react, a large plume of smoke filled the center of the room, drawing everyone's attention. The cause of the sudden disturbance was none other than the proctor of the first exam, Ibiki Morino. Settle down, all of you, Ibiki commanded, his authoritative presence silencing the room. I am Ibiki Morino, and I will be overseeing the first portion of the exam for those aspiring to become Chunin. His tone left no room for argument. Taking note of the scene caused by the Sound ninja, Ibiki addressed them sternly. Enough. If you keep causing trouble before the exam even begins, do you want to fail already? He asked rhetorically. The 3 Sound Genin quickly nodded in understanding and ceased their actions. Recognizing that continuing the confrontation would only hurt their chances, Dosu decided to de-escalate. I apologize. This is our first time, and we got carried away, he admitted. Ibiki simply nodded in acknowledgement before shifting his attention elsewhere. This is a good time to make something clear, Ibiki continued. There will be no fighting without permission from the examiner. Even if permission is granted, harming your opponent beyond what is necessary will not be tolerated. Anyone who fails to follow this rule will be immediately disqualified. Understood? He directed his warning particularly toward the Sound trio, ensuring they grasped the seriousness of his words. With that, Ibiki moved forward with the exam process. We will now begin the first test of this year's Chunin exams. Instead of remaining in your current seats, you will each draw a number and sit in the assigned spot. Once seated, we will distribute the tests. As soon as he finished speaking, the participants stepped forward one by one to collect their seat assignments. Had this been 6 months ago, Naruko would have rushed ahead impatiently. However, she had grown significantly since then, and her more composed demeanor led to an unexpected outcome. Hinata, who might have otherwise ended up sitting near her, was placed elsewhere. Instead, Naruko found herself seated between Shino and a ninja from Takigakure. As she prepared herself mentally, she remained confident in her ability to handle any challenge that came her way. Ibiki wasted no time. Do not turn over your tests yet. Listen carefully, as the rules of this exam are important. I will write them on the board, but no questions will be allowed, so pay attention. The first rule, you all start with 10 points. This test consists of 10 questions. Upon hearing this, Naruko felt reassured. The fewer questions there were, the lower the likelihood that she would struggle with unfamiliar material. Each question is worth 1 point, Ibiki continued. However, this exam follows a subtraction-based scoring system. If you answer everything correctly, you will keep all 10 points. But if you miss 3 questions, you will lose 3 points and be left with 7. Then, he delivered the crucial detail. Here's where things get more challenging. If any of you are caught cheating, 2 points will be deducted for each offense. Some of you may lose all your points before even finishing the test and will be asked to leave. Remember this, you won't just be jeopardizing your own chances of becoming a chunin. If you fail, your teammates fail as well. The tension in the room grew as Ibiki laid out the final rule. And most importantly, those who lose all their points and cannot answer a single question correctly will automatically fail, along with their 2 teammates. He smirked slightly, knowing the pressure this would put on the candidates. The exam begins now. You have 1 hour. Start. Ibiki announced, officially beginning the first test. Sakura, sitting in her assigned seat, took a deep breath. Initially, she had been worried about Naruko, but over the past several months, her teammate had grown significantly. She was much sharper than before, and Sakura believed Naruko would handle this test just fine. After completing the cryptogram that comprised the first question, Naruko took a moment to glance up and observe the other participants. She was curious to see whether they were struggling with the test as much as she was. As she scanned the room, it became evident that she was the only one attempting to answer the questions honestly. From her perspective, Shino Aburame, one of her academy classmates, was employing his clan's signature technique for an unconventional purpose, information gathering. He had discreetly deployed his insects to peek at the answers of nearby test takers and relay the information back to him. Intrigued, Naruko decided to see how others were managing to cheat, wondering if she could glean any useful strategies. She soon noticed the Hyuga that Sasuke had spoken to earlier utilizing their renowned Byakugan to gather information with precision. It soon became clear that the proctors were subtly encouraging participants to cheat, as long as they did so discreetly. Understanding this, a small smirk crept onto Naruko's face. This was bound to get interesting. No matter how much she had changed, a part of her still craved attention. Her sharp gaze soon landed on Ino Yamanaka, who was using her clan's mind-body switch technique to control another Genin. Seeing an opportunity, Naruko stood up with confidence, walking over to the very ninja Ino had just taken control of. With a smirk and all the boldness in the world, she grabbed the test paper right off the desk and casually made her way back to her seat. Ibiki Morino, the lead proctor, was momentarily speechless. He had seen many things in his career, but never had he witnessed a Genin so audacious. "Excuse me, what exactly do you think you're doing?" he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Naruko turned around, unfazed. "The rules state that if you get caught cheating, you lose 2 points. I still have 8, she replied smoothly, her expression confident. Ibiki quickly realized the chaos that would unfold if he didn't take control of the situation immediately. New rule: no stealing other people's test papers. Anyone caught doing so will be disqualified on the spot, he announced firmly. Sakura, watching in horror, internally panicked. Please don't let Team 7 get disqualified because of her antics. Sasuke, on the other hand, merely scoffed. Show off, he thought, rolling his eyes. Meanwhile, Ino, seething with irritation, formed a hand seal, glaring daggers at her fellow blonde. Naruko, in turn, simply smirked back at her. Despite herself, Ino couldn't help but pay more attention to her than ever before. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Naruko paid no mind to the countless eyes locked onto her. In fact, it was exactly what she wanted. I am the incredible, dazzling, and absolutely stunning Anko Mitarashi, declared Anko, unfurling a large banner that echoed her enthusiastic words. I will be your proctor for the second exam. Taking a quick count of the participants who had passed the first round, Anko turned to Ibiki with an easy grin. 63, huh? That's about average. I guess there's nothing too remarkable about this batch, she remarked. Ibiki merely gave her a knowing look, letting her draw her own conclusions. Well, I'll make sure to cut that number in half by the end of the next test, Anko added confidently. Her gaze flickered over the assembled Junon, many of whom now wore nervous expressions. Not one to waste an opportunity, she leaned in slightly, her tone playful yet menacing. Ah, this is getting exciting. I'll explain everything once we change locations, she announced, her grin widening. With no choice but to follow instructions, the Junon who had passed Ibiki's test trailed after the energetic proctor, eager, but also slightly wary, to discover what awaited them in the next stage. The Forest of Death. As the participants arrived at their destination, Anko stepped forward, capturing their attention. Welcome to the site of the second phase of your exams. This area is officially designated as Training Ground 44, but the locals have another name for it, the Forest of Death, she announced, her tone carrying an air of mystery, almost as if she were a tour guide introducing a famous landmark. Taking in the sight before them, Sakura couldn't help but feel uneasy. The ominous atmosphere of the forest was undeniably intimidating. Naruko, on the other hand, was curious about the kinds of creatures and plants that inhabited the dense wilderness. It certainly seemed like the kind of place where only the strongest could thrive. Meanwhile, Sasuke was deep in thought, considering how many formidable opponents he might encounter within the Forest of Death. You'll soon understand exactly why it's called the Forest of Death, Anko said with a mischievous grin, scanning the group of Junon to see who looked the most unsettled. While no one stood out in particular, she did take note of the Hyuga girl, thinking she might make for an interesting target. Before moving forward, I am required by law to give you a day off so that you can prepare for the upcoming test tomorrow. I only brought you here today to ensure you know where to go when the exam begins. Now that I've shared all the necessary information, I'll be heading out, and you might want to do the same. Anko stated to the Junon, who all looked relieved in their own way, even Gaara, as this break would allow him to eat and gather energy in advance. Oh, and before I go, I'll offer you one piece of advice because I'm feeling generous. You should pack enough supplies for 5 days. See you then. The purple-haired special Jonin added before swiftly disappearing. As the other teams began making their way out, some lingering behind to strategize, Naruko left the entrance of the Forest of Death, determined to prepare as thoroughly as possible. Her goal was clear, she wanted to earn the rank of Chunin, and she was willing to put in the effort to make it happen. The moment Naruko left the training grounds, she headed straight for the library. Ever since she had grown and developed as both a person and a ninja, the library had become a trusted resource for answers. After selecting a book, she made her way to Training Ground 7, the only place where she could practice freely. Her apartment was far too small for any serious training, and other locations were often off-limits due to the stigma surrounding her as the host of the Kyubi no Kitsune. Upon arriving, Naruko decided to test her progress in wind elemental manipulation and assess its effectiveness in battle. She carefully applied the techniques she had learned the day before. Placing her left palm over her right forearm, she focused on forming the wind element chakra. When she pulled her hand away, she noticed a small cut on her arm. Though it only drew a teaspoon's worth of blood and healed quickly thanks to the Kyubi, Naruko wasn't satisfied. She knew that most people wouldn't have such a rapid healing ability, and she wanted a technique that could end a confrontation swiftly, rather than one that required an extended battle to make an impact. Determined to improve, she decided to use her most effective jutsu to date, Shadow Clone Jutsu, to accelerate her training in wind element manipulation. Halfway through the session, she dispelled her clones to absorb the knowledge they had gathered while she took a break to eat and replenish her chakra reserves. As she reviewed her progress, Naruko found that her clones had successfully cut leaves with clean, smooth edges. Wanting to push her skills further, she turned to the Shinobi book for guidance. The book explained that mastering wind element required cutting through progressively tougher materials, with an advanced challenge being the ability to slice through a waterfall. The recommendation was to begin with thin branches and gradually work up to thicker pieces of wood. With a clear plan in mind, Naruko dedicated the rest of the day to honing her technique. By the time night fell, around 10 p.m., she finally decided to wrap up her training for the day. She was satisfied with the progress she had made in just one session. By the time she had finished, her wind cutting technique had improved to the point where she could slice through a thick stick with remarkable precision, almost as cleanly as if it had been cut with a bandsaw. Additionally, she noticed that whenever she performed the hand seals for wind release, air bullet jutsu, the more powerful wind release, drilling air bullet jutsu would emerge instead. This enhancement was significant, as Naruko believed the jutsu could likely cut deep enough to stop an opponent effectively while also having enough force to knock down a small tree. The combination of pressurized wind and cutting force allowed it to penetrate a tree's defenses and bring it down. With her training complete for the day, Naruko made her way home, feeling confident in her progress. Now, all that remained was to get a good night's rest and be ready for the second exam, which would begin at 9:30 in the morning. That's a wrap for now, everyone. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on more awesome content. Much love and appreciation, thank you for your support. Stay inspired, stay passionate. Anime Dreams.